Part 28. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shiyubuletin Chigwa. Chapter 272. Outside Vientiane Cinema City. The long cordon has been lifted. Countless Daxia Dragon Bird members wearing uniforms are receiving survivors. Wang Chengzhen, the head of operations of the Binhai branch, looked suspicious about what the record of life contained. In front of him, stood two waves of people. Yubo is a survivor headed by Mr. Chi, a well-known Binhai entrepreneur. One wave is a group of college students who survived from screening room number 1. Wait a minute, let me figure it out. Wang Cheng took a deep breath. He looked at Mr. Chi and said with suspicion, "You are saying that you met an expert in his 20s. He not only killed a fierce ghost with a knife, but also stepped on the face of another ghost with his foot. Threatening Li Gui to call out his accomplices, and also want to force Li Gui to make a ghost movie." Mr. Chi said seriously, "Yes, he is a real master. Li Gui is like a baby in front of him. I even have an illusion that he is much more terrifying than Li Gui. Captain Wang, if you give me the right words, he will, whether he is from Binhai or not, I have to thank him." Empire. He didn't speak. Instead, he turned and looked at the man with glasses. "You guys said that when you were watching a movie in auditorium number 1, a man about your age walked in, then chased and killed two ghosts who came out of the movie screen, and cut off the ghosts' arms." The man with glasses said decisively, "Yes, when all of us thought we were dead, he casually snatched the kitchen knife from the hand of the ghost dressed as a chef, and cut off the ghost's arm with just 2 strokes, and filled the movie theater with it. He chased the other one with extremely cruel methods. Then a woman's cry of 'woo' sounded, and we watched him walk into the movie screen and disappear into the screening room. When we woke up again, the game ended in front of us. Congratulations to us for getting the hint to become a horror game player." The man with glasses said excitedly, "Captain Wang, he is also a player. Do you know how many levels are needed to reach a level like him? Hear this." Wang Cheng's eyelids twitched, and the corners of his mouth twitched. This supernatural cinema is a 2-star copy. According to what these survivors said, the ghosts in their eyes were undoubtedly Tsingyi level terrifying beings. A 2-star dungeon gathers more than 6 King II level creatures, plus the ghosts that appear every time you watch the movie. This is a proper 2-star upgrade dungeon. If you want to clear such a dungeon by yourself, even Samsung players will have a hard time. Only a 4-star player has this ability. Which city's leader was so idle that he came over to swipe their copy? There was some awe in his heart. Brushing a 2-star dungeon alone was simply unimaginable to him. He is also a 2-star player, so he naturally understands the horror of the 2-star dungeon. Just to survive, he needs to rack his brains and work step by step. However, in the real world, there are already people who can do it alone. The gap between people. How huge! As for reaching this level, he smiled. When he first became a horror game player, he never imagined that he would become stronger step by step in the horror world, be at the forefront, and become a great master. But only when you step into a copy of the horror game and actually face the ghost will you realize how naive your thoughts are. The birth of every 4-star player is a rare miracle. Mind, understanding, keen insight, prediction of the supernatural, perception of danger, and grasp of the human heart, each of them is indispensable. And that alone is not enough. Far from enough. Luck is also a big part of it. If you are unlucky and are randomly assigned to a high difficulty dungeon, no matter how hard you try, it will be useless. After all, the devil only kills people based on his mood. Thinking. Suddenly he heard other people shouting. "It's him. It's that expert. He's out." There were exclamations. Wang Cheng came back to his senses and looked subconsciously. At the entrance of Vientiane Cinema City, A young man who looked to be in his mid-twenties came out. A bloody hemp rope was dancing around his wrist. It stood up in mid-air in a way that defied gravity. It seems that he is taking credit from this man. Surprise flashed in Wang Cheng's eyes. Too young. He knew not only all the 4-star players in the country, but he also knew 70% to 80% of them. But there is absolutely no one so young among them. He would never forget such an outstanding and normal appearance once he had seen it. Who is he? The other side. Come out from Vientiane Cinema City. This round of game has ended. The copy of the supernatural cinema collapsed. The player King Yama has been marked by world-weary ghosts and gods. Note, when players step into any supernatural cinema, there is a chance of triggering the hostility of world-weary ghosts and gods. Looking at the prompts on the scarlet panel, Shen Jian's heart had already calmed down. He finally saw it. Each of these ghosts and gods marked and paid attention, but none of them had the ability to act. The glorious ghosts and gods, the ferrying ghosts and gods, and now here comes another world-weary ghost and god. Among them, the glorious ghosts and gods need to step into a supernatural place such as a monastery to trigger their attention. The ferrying of ghosts and gods has taken action, but unfortunately it will not come at all in a short time. And this world-weary ghost and god, like the glorious ghost and god, needs to enter a specific supernatural place. Shen Jian glanced at it with disgust. Turn to think about other things. Binhai City is close to Qingxi, so it can be used as the site for the second city god's hall. He needs to rebuild a city god's temple here. According to his estimation, when the reconstruction of the city god's temple is completed, the city god's temple should have completely taken over the entire Qingxi city, and it will be able to be seamlessly connected by then. While thinking, Shen Jian also saw the Binhai branch Daxia Longke members and survivors who were standing outside. At this time, a path opened up in the crowd, and an unsmiling middle-aged man came over, took off his gloves, and stretched out a hand. Head of Binhai branch operations, Wang Cheng, thank you for your contribution to Binhai. We will not. Your trip was in vain. See this. Shen Jian was stunned. He pondered for 2 seconds. Suddenly he covered his chest and coughed violently. He also took out a tissue, covered his mouth, and seemed to spit out a mouthful of phlegm. Shen Jian looked at it intently for a few seconds. Blood. Empire? What a terrible copy, Shen Jian said solemnly, his voice appearing extremely weak. It actually injured me like this. This battle has deprived me of at least 50 years of my skills. Empire? He looked confused. The back molars are even a little sore. What a god, 50 years of skill. You look about 25 years old. Staying up late and working overtime can't produce 50 years of skills. Wang Cheng's mouth twitched. Why is this big guy so different from the 4-star player in his impression? 4-star players are players who stand in the first echelon of the supernatural world. Every one of them is a master in horror games. A few secrets they casually reveal are enough to cause a major earthquake in the supernatural world. The strategies they write down casually, and is regarded as a treasure by players. An existence of this level would not be arrogant, looking down upon everything, but the person in front of him seemed a little different. What do you always want to do? Referring to phlegm as blood. Want to touch porcelain? Wang Cheng was a little confused. However, as a businessman, Mr. Qi seemed to see something. Licking his face, he came to Shen Jian. Yi Zheng said, Master, you have lost your skills to help us. I am very grateful and decided to pay 10 million to express my feelings. Master, please don't refuse. Shen Jian was startled and looked at the middle-aged man in front of him like a coward. Get on the road. Very good. What's your name? The middle-aged man was overjoyed. Master, my name is Qi Shan. Very good, I'll give you a task. If it's completed, the 10 million yuan will be yours. You can help me find a city god's temple on the coast and renovate it. It's best to have one with a good location. Just give me a call. Shen Jian wrote down the phone number and smiled. The problem of the city god's temple is solved. Originally, he wanted to blackmail Daxia Longke, but he didn't expect that there would be a rich man, so everything would be much simpler. No problem, master, I will help you handle it according to the highest standards. Mr. Qi was overjoyed. This is not a project, this is clearly a golden thigh waiting for him to hold. Empire. Until Shen Jian left. He finally reacted. The other party just seemed to be waiting for Daxia Longke to respond. He seemed to have missed something. Among the survivors, an ordinary mother and son hug each other. The little boy pointed at Shen Jian's disappearing back, raised his head and said, "Mom, that big brother said before that you asked him to come and save me." "Mom, do you know this big brother?" The mother was stunned. Mr. Qi, who was listening on the side, was also stunned. He tried to think back. It was discovered that when Shen Jian saw them for the first time, he indeed found the little boy at first sight and claimed that he was here to save him. The mother shook her head with confusion on her face. "Mom doesn't know the savior. Mom has been praying for you at the Chenghuang temple these days, asking the city god to bless you." Mr. Qi. His pupils shrank. Suddenly I thought of some ridiculous possibility. "Sister, where did you pray for your son?" "In the city god's temple in Qingxi. It is said that someone has seen the city god appear, so I went there." Mr. Qi swallowed his saliva. "Qingxi, city god's temple, my old man, is it possible that our Qi family has embraced the lap of a god?" At the same time, an inconspicuous urban village in Qingxi. A self-built bungalow. Figures gathered here. At the door of the room, a middle-aged scarred man and a pale man walked in from outside. "Killing, poison, you are late." In the bungalow, a middle-aged man in a suit who had been waiting here sounded a little dissatisfied. "Blood and tears, you are too nervous." The god of slaughter smiled ferociously, and there was a scar running through the entire face on his ferocious face, making him look even more terrifying. The three of us took action together. Not to mention that the person in charge of Qingxi was not here. Even if he was here, he would not be able to escape unscathed from the attacks of our three great envoys. The pale-faced poison divine envoy said fearfully, "Don't be careless. Although that person is still in the bloody paper shop and cannot come out, his supernatural horror is undeniable." The death of the two great envoys of Zhizi and Curse is one lesson. The god of blood and tears was wearing a crisp suit, and he sneered like a cultural man. "You may not know yet, but there has been a change in the copy of the bloody paper making shop. Luo Wenhao inside was unable to be contacted a few days ago. He was suspected to have been the man's identity was discovered and he was killed. In this case, 3 divine messengers from our organization have died in his hands." Killing, do you think you have the ability to kill 3 divine messengers alone? Hear this. The scar-faced killing god's eyelids twitched. But he still said forcefully, "I still said the same thing. That person is in the dungeon, and he has not become the person in charge of Qing City on the surface. He has not organized the supernatural power of Qing City at all. As long as the 3 major halls of us are dispatched together, the Daxia Longke in the Qingxi branch can be destroyed with just a flip of the hand. That's not bad. A mere branch dares to snipe at our fallen angel organization. It deserves to be killed. When to act? Right now, the personnel are complete. Although Qingxi is on guard, the concealment and mystery of the supernatural power cannot be detected by a group of ordinary people." The god of blood and tears showed a cruel smile. "Tonight, let Qingxi become hell." That night. Qingxi Daxia Longke branch. Qian Quan couldn't sleep all night. A few days ago, they got a piece of news. The fallen angel organization suspected that they had grasped clues to the death of the cursed angel and the Zhizha archangel, and decided to launch a massacre against the Qingxi branch. To defend their reputation. Immediately, he blocked the exits from Qingxi and launched investigations one by one. But the effect is extremely poor. The members of the fallen angel organization seem to have some mysterious concealment method. Within a few days, less than 100 people were found, and many of them successfully escaped, and then disappeared. The captured fallen angel members cannot be interrogated either. Once a certain keyword is triggered, these members will die strangely. Not even the tools to suppress the supernatural can alleviate this mortal curse. Without any choice, he could only focus all his attention on defense. Sizzle. At this time, the lights in the room suddenly dimmed. Qian Quan stood up suddenly. His expression changed drastically. To do it so quickly. These desperados are so courageous. Without hesitation, he rushed to the scene immediately. City God's Hall. Shen Jian sat in the city god's seat, flipping through the prayer sheet in his hand. The ghost teacher came over in a hurry. Sir, the fallen angel organization has taken action. Shen Jian paused. There was a hint of excitement on his face. I've waited until all the flowers withered. You go ahead and set off the night parade of 100 ghosts. I want Qingxi to turn into the shape of the underworld. Yes, husband. Countless charming voices echoed. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Yubuletin Chigua. Chapter 273. City God's Hall. Shen Jian sat in his seat, his mood also fluctuating a bit. When he first took over the underworld, there was only one Yama palace in the entire underworld, and everything was in ruins. Now, the palace of Yama, the palace of Qingguang, the palace of Shijiang, and the palace of Emperor Song. There are 4 halls. The gates of hell are wide open, the river of forgetfulness flows, and the flowers on the other side are in full bloom. The 18 levels of hell are unlocked to the 13th level. The number of tortured ghosts exceeds thousands. A city god's hall. There are countless ghosts. There is a difference between 2 living persons. There are dozens of dead people. Although this is still just the beginning compared to the legendary underworld, Shen Jian is already satisfied. Today's underworld has entered a stage of rapid development. As long as Qing City is completely controlled, we can use this as a basis to radiate across the country and even the world. By then, the underworld will regain its mythology. Are you okay? The mood is ups and downs. Shen Jian saw the ghost teacher still standing there. The ghost teacher pondered for a few times and said, Sir, Wei Wuliang learned about the attack on the Daxia Longke branch in Qing City and wanted to help. Shen Jian frowned and said in a cold voice, didn't he read the contract when we signed it? The underworld is not allowed to interfere in the affairs of the Yang world, and it cannot have too much contact with the Yang world. What you have to do is to protect the tranquility within your jurisdiction. Arrest the evil spirits. The ghost teacher's head hung down and he was sweating profusely. He shouldn't have agreed to this errand. Now there are no human beings inside or outside. Although the Lord is not angry, his aura is increasing day by day. Just the cold tone made him feel the abyss. Sir, I will refuse him right now. The ghost teacher said quickly. Wait, let him go. At this time, Shen Jian suddenly spoke. Ghost teacher? He looked up blankly. Just in time to see Shen Jian reveal a strange smile. If he wants to go, let him go. After all, I am the one who personally selected the city god. I can't be so unkind. Tell him that I will allow him to go to Yangshi to clean up the battlefield. Yes. The ghost teacher didn't understand Shen Jian's thoughts, but he could see that the master seemed to have some new ideas. Watching the ghost teacher leave, The smile on Shen Jian's face became even brighter. Almost missed an opportunity. In front of everyone, he asked the ghost teacher to personally arrest Wei Wuliang's soul in front of the members of the Great Xiaolongke, and said in person that he would make Wei Wuliang a sinister underworld, which was originally intended to attract people. What kind of person can quickly adapt to a difficult job? The one who controls ghosts. Thriller gamer. Member of Xiaolongke. These three are all active on the front line of the supernatural circle. As long as they become shady agents, they don't even need training, and they can catch the ghosts themselves. In front of other Xiaolongke members, he told the position of underworld messenger in the underworld, because he wanted to leave an idea in the hearts of these people. As long as he has merit, he can go to the underworld to work as underworld messenger after death. Not many people can refuse this kind of temptation. But now, Wei Wuliang once again shines brightly after his death, which can undoubtedly prove the fact that he has become a sinister figure in the underworld. By the time, I'm afraid that ghost masters from all over the country will enter Qingxi before they die, hoping to become evil. With Wei Wuliang's living advertisement, why worry about not attracting talented people? Just imagine, a person's consciousness will not disappear after death, but he can continue to live in the world, and he can even come into contact with the human world and walk in the world like a living person. How is this different from eternal life? Just because he thought of this, Shen Jian changed his mind temporarily. Brother, can Kikai go? At this time, Kikai also walked over, her eyes a little angry, and the old yellow dog followed behind her, his head lowered, for fear of making his master angry again. Shen Jian's eyes showed a bit of surprise. Think about it. Go if you want. Regarding the placement of the little girl in front of him, Shen Jian also considered sending her out and returning to the Yangshi. After all, she is too young. Even if he is already a different kind of ghost controller, he cannot play any role. Only time will prove whether this method of controlling powerful ghosts is correct or not. Shen Jian glanced at the old yellow dog next to Chi-Chi. Under the nourishment of the city god's hall, this fierce ghost had already reached the half-step red level. If nothing else, it is enough to protect people. Soon, Shen Jian was the only one left in the huge Chenghuang hall. Tisk, I've become a loner. Shen Jian clicked his tongue. Then he was slightly startled. Suddenly he thought of the river goddess who was placed in Villa No. 001. There was also a smile on his face. You play with yours, and I play with mine. At the same time, Qingxi Xiaolongke branch. There is a dark wind blowing from heaven and earth, and the branches and leaves of the trees in the green belt are swaying and rustling. Black shadows sprang out one after another, leaving behind a sinister ghostly smile that was jarring and frightening. If anyone stood at the end of the road, they would see a horrifying scene. The end of the road. The light shines brightly. Dozens of figures came over. Some appear to be just like ordinary people, but if you look closely, you will find that there are things crawling inside some people's clothes. Some people's back clothes have a grimace, making a wailing look. Some people's hearts are empty, some people's legs are empty. Already rotten, only bones. And in front of this group of people, there are three more figures. One person's face was full of flesh, with a scar running through his face. That was the god of slaughter. One person's face was as pale as a dead man's face without any emotion. That was the poison god envoy. One person was wearing a straight suit, his eyes were shedding blood and tears, and his scarlet eyes were moving, taking in everything around him. That is the god of blood and tears. The members of Xiaolongke headed by Jian Quan all took a deep breath. The three great envoys led dozens of ghost masters and more than 400 members of the fallen angel organization who either carried supernatural props or had special fighting skills to attack. This power is enough to destroy the Qingxi branch. Let Qingxi become purgatory. This is an unprecedented super-large S-class supernatural event. If it is not enough, if the battlefield is spread out, King Shi's economy will be set back for at least 30 years. Are you crazy? Aren't you afraid that the headquarters will make up its mind and eradicate you all? Qian Quan shouted solemnly. Ha ha ha, a branch leader is worthy of talking to us. The eyes of the scar-faced killer god are full of bloodlust and jest. It was you who killed my two fallen angels. The Fallen Angels organization has no intention of being an enemy of you. It's you who insist on meddling in our affairs, the poison god envoy said coldly. Fart, if you hadn't massacred the village and killed people, who would have had time to care about you? Qian Quan roared, using a rare expletive. The new world is coming. Those who cannot grasp the trend will eventually die in the future. We just brought their death a little earlier. We will not forget the contributions they made to us new humans. The eyes of the god of blood and tears were filled with bright red blood, and his face was filled with grief. Yes, when the horror game comes, more than 70% of the world's population will die from the resurrection of evil spirits. Since they will die sooner or later, it will help us improve our supernatural powers, and we can better occupy a place in the trend of the new world. The killing god also spoke. The members of the Fallen Angel organization behind him also showed smiles of approval. It seems that they have completely recognized this theory in their hearts. Qian Quan felt cold in his heart. There are still people here. No evil ghost in human skin would have such unscrupulous thoughts. This is a bunch of lunatics. If they are not wiped out, the world will fall before the horror game arrives. Okay, don't delay. The person in charge of your Qing city won't be able to come, so don't waste your efforts. At this time, the god of slaughter said impatiently, having already lost control of his desire to kill. Hear this. Qian Quan's expression changed drastically. Because he was preparing to ask Shen Jian for help. The three great envoys, this is a problem that the Qingxi branch is simply unable to solve. At the moment, only by inviting Shen Jian out can we resolve this difficulty. But this plan seemed to have been discovered by the other party. And the other party also knew that Shen Jian was not currently in the real world. Ha ha ha, how dare we come here without doing some homework? After all, it was the killing star that single-handedly killed Zhizha and cursed the two great envoys. The god of blood and tears smiled sadly. But he is currently in a 4-star dungeon and will not be able to come out in 3 to 5 months. Even if you ask for help, will he be able to return to the real world? Qian Quan has a very ugly face. Even Shen Jian knew that he had entered the 4-star dungeon. It seems that an angel from the Fallen Angel organization also entered the dungeon and recognized Shen Jian's identity. This time it was completely over. Money is as broad as death. But he sent a message anyway. Instructor Qian, Mr. Shen, one of the players in your dungeon is an envoy of the Fallen Angel organization. He already knows your true identity. Don't let him go. Finished. Determination showed on his face. When he comes back, he will come to you to settle everything. Ha ha ha, it's a pity that you can't see it anymore. The god of killing smiled jokingly. Do it and destroy this place. The voice fell. The members of the Fallen Angel organization showed ferocious expressions one by one. Some people's bodies are filled with ghost shadows, some people's hearts are beating bang bang bang, some people's clothes are stretched open, revealing the ferocious faces behind them, and they are crying and howling. However, at this time, from the end of the road there was the clanging sound of chains and the mysterious sound of bells, which was very disturbing. What's the situation? Ambush. The expressions of the three great gods changed. Their people have already arrived, and this is definitely not their person. The one who comes is not good. They looked. His pupils shrank, and he could detect terrifying supernatural fluctuations sweeping through him. The ghosts in their bodies instinctively sensed danger. The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became quiet. Look at each one. Then, whether they were members of the Fallen Angel organization or members of the Great Summer Dragon Bird, everyone in the audience was breathless at this moment. Under the bright moonlight, there are many ghosts. It was completely black. There were countless terrifying figures. They are all ghost servants wearing black official robes and holding soul-enchanting chains. They walked on the street with dead eyes and cold eyes. A pair of dark and horrifying eyes made people's scalp numb. But in front of these ghosts, 9 beautiful female ghosts with plump figures and charming looks were walking in front. The sky-high resentment enveloped the entire street, terror and despair continued to spread, supernatural beings were wailing sharply, and the blood in the sky spread in the corners and alleys. This moment, hundreds of ghosts walk in the night. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shiyubuletin Chigwa. Chapter 274. This moment, the whole place was dead silent. Everyone felt like their breath was frozen, almost suffocating. What kind of picture is that? 4 words appeared instinctively in their minds. 100 ghosts walk at night. Everyone was confused. He stared blankly at the horrifying and shocking scene in front of him. Ghost. All are evil spirits. That was not someone trying to make things up, but a real evil spirit coming. Everyone's eyes were focused on the 9 beautiful female ghosts at the head. Dressed in white, with disheveled hair, Sadako hides her appearance under her long black hair. Wearing a black evening gown, her face covered with a black gauze, Miss Mary held a giant beheading knife in her hand and showed a sickly smile. Wrapped in a windbreaker, wearing a mask, holding a ghost sickle, the slit girl showed a gloomy and sinister smile. A long blood-stained dress floats, with bare jade feet, and the pen fairy makes a ticking sound every time he takes a step. The 4 Bai sisters have exactly the same appearance and can become the focus of the audience with every smile. Each of them is decorated with a bridal gown. Wearing a long, bright red robe with a phoenix crown hanging down, it is as gorgeous as blood, letting the blood spread to the end of the ghost bride. 9 figures, 9 beautiful female ghosts. Everyone will blush when they see it. How could there be such a beautiful and charming female ghost in this world? Who can send these 9 beautiful and fragrant ghosts at the same time? Everyone was dumbfounded. And the 3 great envoys saw an extremely terrifying scene. Their eyes widened and their whole bodies trembled uncontrollably. Top redcoats, all top redcoats. In their eyes, the 9 female ghosts in front of them exuded cold and suffocating supernatural fluctuations, which were the supernatural auras belonging to the top red-clad ghosts. Not only that. In their opinion, the auras of these 9 female ghosts were far more terrifying than the top red-clad ghosts they had encountered. This gap can be judged very easily. Especially the ghost bride wearing a bright red robe and a phoenix crown on her head, the terrifying aura about her body is beyond the normal top red dressed level. It reached a level they had never felt before. They couldn't see through the details of this ghost bride, but they were still instinctively afraid. Ghost King. Such an idea immediately popped up in their minds. A chill shot up from the soles of his feet to Tianling Gai, and his back was soaked with cold sweat. What a joke. A mere fringe city, a city that didn't even have a city manager, actually hid more than 100 fierce ghosts. There are also 8 top red level ones. And a ghost king. This lineup is already comparable to the entire foundation of a 4-star copy. And even more. What on earth is going on with this horse riding? Where did these evil ghosts come from? These people in Kingshi are all idiots, otherwise how could a city inhabited by humans have 100 ghosts walking at night? Then, the god of killing, who had the most explosive temper, roared out angrily, "The person in charge here must have cerebral palsy. There are so many evil ghosts in Qingxi, and you don't even know it." Qian Quan? He was really confused. He saw it. These fierce ghosts were wearing black official robes and holding soul-seducing chains. They were exactly the same as the seducing ghosts he had seen at the Ghost Controller Hospital. No doubt. This is the power of the underworld. Although he had never seen the 9 beautiful female ghosts in front of him, he had also heard that when the underworld first came to the world, several beautiful and fierce ghosts appeared in Lekeng and had mysterious whereabouts. He suspected that these were the ones in front of him. But he didn't invite Shen Jian. He didn't even inform Shen Jian of the situation, he just told him to be careful about the players in the dungeon. How did Shen Jian know that Daxia Longke was being attacked and come to the rescue at the critical moment? Has he returned to the real world? Qian Quan was stunned. The 4-star dungeon came out less than 7 days after entering it. You are unparalleled inside. The corner of his mouth twitched. Ignoring the friendly greetings from the killing god, he quietly observed the situation. At this time, the ghost bride came out. The beautiful but extremely cold voice said, "My husband has ordered that all members of the fallen angel organization be killed." Boom. The words fell. The hundreds of ghosts behind them rushed out holding soul-catching chains, and supernatural fluctuations spread everywhere. Wait, is there a misunderstanding? The god of blood and tears stopped bleeding, and his face became extremely ugly. Not to mention the 100 ghost night walk, the 9 beautiful female ghosts at the head alone were not something they could deal with. Coupled with the hundreds of fierce ghosts behind these female ghosts, the battle situation is not suspense at all. This scene. How familiar. They seemed to behave like this when they threatened Daxia Longke just now. The Fallen Angel organization can easily destroy the Daxia Dragon Bird branch, but these evil ghosts can also easily destroy them. Even as a 4-star player, he couldn't guarantee that he could get out alive. Poison God made his stiff pale face drip with cold sweat, and said, "Who is your husband? We have something to say. We don't seem to have offended your husband, so there must be a reason for taking action against us." Yes, yes, the killing god nodded crazily. The ghost bride just glanced coldly. It seems that in her eyes, it can only accommodate one person. There is no room for anyone else. The ghost bride sneered sinisterly, her voice extremely cold, "Where the underworld is, the supernatural is forbidden. Trespassers, violators, and intruders will all die." As soon as these words came out, the 3 great envoys felt like they were struck by lightning. Hell. Qingxi is where the underworld is. The reason turned out to be this. The 3 great envoys understood that there was no escape today. Run. Run. Run away. A mass of black ghosts in official robes charged towards them, and the 3 great envoys roared angrily. All members of the Fallen Angels organization are dead souls. Also screaming in fear. It is their duty to deal with humans. After all, when a person is killed, he will die. However, this rule does not apply in the face of evil ghosts. The supernatural beings are immortal and the evil ghosts are immortal. Under such a large-scale night march of hundreds of ghosts, even the 3 great envoys did not dare to guarantee that they would have time to suppress the ghosts to a state of panic. Not crashing is equivalent to not being injured for Li Gui. This is the natural gap between humans and evil spirits. Can't make up for it? No matter how cruel the lunatic is, facing a ghost that cannot be killed but can kill you with one attack, he must put away his violence and behave like a human being. Ring ring ring. A chaotic scene. Suddenly a cell phone ringtone rang. Someone looked subconsciously. It's an unknown caller. The caller was Miss Mary. "No, don't answer. I don't want to answer." A member of the Fallen Angel organization screamed in horror. But as if his fingers were out of control, he connected the phone number. On the other end of the phone, a morbid voice sounded, "Hello, I am Miss Mary. I am in front of you now." The words fell. Miss Mary, dressed in a black evening gown, had appeared behind the human who answered the phone and struck with a decapitating knife. Laugh. Blood spurts. Run away. When the surrounding fallen angel organization members saw this, they all showed horrified emotions, collapsed and fled. But the next moment, their cell phones all rang. Even if there is no battery or even the phone is turned off, a series of incoming call ringtones are ringing at this moment. The caller ID is all Miss Mary. A supernatural force prompted them to answer the phone. "I'm Miss Mary, I'm behind you." At this moment, the entire street became a hunting ground in the underworld. He looked at his companions who were killed one by the ghost in black evening clothes because of the ringing of the phone. The other members of the fallen angel organization almost collapsed one by one. In addition to this crazy person, there was also a crazy female ghost at the scene. That's the Gap Girl. She took off the mask she was wearing, and her originally beautiful face became terrifying because of the torn wound at the corner of her mouth. "Am I pretty?" She was holding an evil ghost sickle, approaching step by step, showing a strange smile. The girl with the cracked mouth, she turned out to be the girl with the cracked mouth, one of the urban legends. See it? Immediately, the faces of the demon masters from the fallen angel organization changed drastically. One of the urban weird stories, the girl with a gaping mouth. As players of horror games, they are no strangers to the killing patterns of the Rift Girl. This is a question and answer type ghost that randomly asks passers-by questions. The answer is that beauty or ugliness will trigger the killing pattern of the cracked girl. But there is a method in the supernatural world that is not a solution, and it is only suitable for ghost masters who control powerful ghosts. That is the answer: beautiful. Say this answer, and the Rift Girl will tear the respondent's mouth into pieces like hers. If it were a normal player and his mouth was forcibly opened, even if he didn't die on the spot, he would eventually die of excessive bleeding. But the Ghost Master is different. What keeps the Ghost Master alive is the supernatural power within his body. As long as the ghost inside the body is still there, this kind of injury will not cause the player to bleed to death. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. A ghost rider shouted. I just hope the Rip Girl moves faster. The longer it drags on, the harder it will be to escape from this ghost massacre. Human, you deserve to die. He can only say this. Whether I am beautiful or not can only be judged by him. You deserve to die, deserve to die. The cracked girl said sharply. Ghost controller? Me. You're so unreasonable. How can there be such a pattern of killing? Why can't I say you are beautiful? His face was purple and he was completely stunned. The killing pattern of the cracked girl has actually changed. Who can I ask to reason with this? My life is at an end. A huge ghost scythe was lifted up by the cracked woman, and she killed the ghost controller on the spot, who was unable to stand up. Everyone. I'd like to ask for advice on how to avoid the killing pattern of the cracked girl when I can't answer beautiful. Am I pretty? The cracked girl looked at a player again. Not beautiful. He said I was beautiful. If you said I wasn't, you must have lied. You deserve to die. The Rift Girl raised the ghost scythe again and killed a member of the fallen angel organization. See it? Others gave up altogether, fleeing in a panic. No longer choose to answer this crazy woman who has achieved self-consistency in logic. Am I pretty? The cracked woman chased after him and asked sharply again. He said that anyone who dares not face up to my problem thinks that I am not beautiful, but I am beautiful in his heart, so you all deserve to die. Hear this. All the members of the fallen angel organization who fled for their lives were shattered. What kind of bloody bastard actually forced the ripped girl to replace her murderous routine? The hymn in this crack girl's mouth is really damned. Hearing these screams, the group of people running for their lives in the other direction trembled all over. While passing a store selling electrical appliances, the originally dark store suddenly lit up with light. Sizzle. The TVs are all on. An ancient well is reflected. From every ancient well, a female ghost with disheveled hair crawled out. This classic image immediately made many members of the Fallen Angels organization exclaim, "Sadako, that's Sadako." Everyone was shocked. After all, Sadako's image is too classic. And the one in front of me is undoubtedly the most beautiful among Sadako. Sadako seems to rely on videotapes to kill people, and it will take 7 days. Let's run away. Someone was overjoyed. Sadako's image is classic, and her killing patterns are even more classic. Need to rely on videotape to kill people. However, at this moment, Sadako, who crawled out of the TV, suddenly raised her pretty face, looked at them, and smiled miserably. "I have seen how you died. You died, so miserably." Sadako spoke. Produces an eerie tone that is different from normal sounds. Supernatural power swept this place. All the locked members of the Fallen Angel organization felt it was difficult to breathe, their hearts were beating violently, their blood vessels were bulging, and their limbs were weak. Various phenomena of death appeared on them at the same time. Thump. 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 There were sounds of falling to the ground one after another. These people are all dead. Die from various fatal symptoms. Most of them died by drowning. A small number of people die from burst blood vessels. However, the strange thing is that these people have no wounds at all. This is a curse. The most common supernatural being among evil spirits. But under Sadako's half-step Ghost King level of supernatural powers, the simple killing curse became a matter of words. A large number of fallen angel members died for no apparent reason. Despair is spreading. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shiyubuletin Chigwa. Chapter 275. Chaos continues. The murderous angel with a fleshy face and scars on his face was also on the way to escape. He just wanted to curse in his heart. He was disturbed by the constant wails, screams, and sounds of fear on the battlefield. Normally, he would have torn these people's mouths apart. They couldn't even say a word. But at this time, he just hated that he didn't bring enough members of the Fallen Angels organization. Damn, what on earth is going on? The underworld, is it the underworld I know? Isn't this fake news? How could the underworld that has disappeared for so many years be revived at this time? The god of killing murmured. News about the recovery of the underworld has indeed been spreading for a while. But there was no news after that. This has led many people to suspect that this is simply a conspiracy, just to create a deterrent force. But now, the news was confirmed. It is truly a resurrection from the underworld. And it is their lives that verify the authenticity of this news. Sadako, Miss Mary, and the Slit Girl are all famous urban ghost stories. Who is the husband mentioned by these female ghosts? The Lord of the Underworld. The god of killing thought. Suddenly stopped. His eyes were horrifying. Because a graceful figure appeared in front of him. The blood-stained red skirt floats, and the bright red blood drips down. The naked ankles are like the most perfect art from heaven, making it impossible to move your eyes away. Playing psychic games. In front of Bixian's eyes, a pen stood up out of thin air in defiance of gravity. A cold and forbidding voice blew like the wind from hell. "By, Pen Fairy." The god of slaughter looked horrified. This is actually the Pen Fairy that cannot be avoided in psychic games. As famous as Sadako. Another urban legend. The rest of the disciples who followed the killing angel also became terrified. Does Bixian have a killing pattern? Could it be that he is playing a psychic game? But this thing is immortal. As long as you abide by all the rules of the psychic game and finally send Bixian away, this supernatural game is not threatening at all. But after seeing Sadako and the change of killing patterns of the cracked girl one after another, they no longer believe this. Escape. Desperate to escape. There is no need to pay attention to the murder rules of these urban monsters, they just need to run faster than their companions. As soon as the idea came up, everyone changes direction. Run in the other direction. Either escape into a house, run into an alley, or jump into a sewer. The god of killing was also among this group of people, but suddenly, he heard a familiar cry. Kill. That was the voice of the god of poison, and a bit like the voice of the god of blood and tears. He subconsciously turned his head, but the moment he turned his head, he realized something was wrong. The battlefield is now divided into countless pieces. It was impossible for the god of blood and tears to cross the battlefield and call him. And it's not just him. Others also heard the shouts of familiar people. The moment he turned his head, their bodies moved uncontrollably, and they walked towards Bixian with somewhat stiff steps, as stiff as corpses, like puppets on strings. That is supernatural power. It is the ability of the ghost trumpet controlled by Bixian. Kill. Zhang-san. John Do. Wang Wu. Bixian opened his mouth, his voice was shrill and hysterical, as if a ghost was threatening. Ghostly voices echoed, and the supernatural involvement became stronger and stronger. Dozens of people walked towards Bixian with stiff steps and pale faces. Each one is like mourning his heir. Master, help me. Master, we don't want to die, we don't want to die. Don't move anymore, stop it. These fallen angel members who were controlled by the supernatural screamed in fear. Bang bang bang. The heartbeat of the killing god became louder and louder, loud and deep, with a strange frequency. The heartbeat continued to spread, and even Bixian's ghost trumpet was somewhat dispelled. Several ghost masters who were resistant to the supernatural stopped at this moment, and then turned around and ran back in a panic. But the next second, a red line appeared on their ankles. Red lines formed, and their feet broke. The whole person fell to the ground due to inertia. Ah! A shrill scream sounded. Everyone's heart trembled. In addition to ghosts calling people, Bixian also has such weird supernatural attacks. Damn, damn. The god of killing was roaring in his heart. He saw it. This pen fairy is relying on its footprints to kill people. The footprints are in a deeper ghost realm. Once you step on them, your ankles will be cut off. And this kind of footprints are all over the place. They are surrounded by supernatural beings. While thinking, they had returned to the scene uncontrollably. I saw Bixian put his hand on someone's shoulder, and that person died immediately. No symptoms. This is a mortal supernatural being. It is one of the puzzles controlled by Bixian, ghosts and people. The god of killing saw this. Turn around and run. This pen fairy is too scary. Far scarier than other urban ghost stories. Just looking at the present, he saw three kinds of supernatural beings in Bixian. Ghosts call people, ghosts kick people, and ghosts hit people. No one is sure whether Bixian can control more ghost puzzles. Kill, kill, kill. The pen fairy is roaring. The penetrating voice reached the ears of the god of slaughter. He turned around uncontrollably. But he didn't panic. One of the powerful ghosts he controls, Goexian, can temporarily resist this all-pervasive supernatural power. Even if you turn your head, your body can still run. However, when he turned back, he only saw Bixian's head. Bixian seemed to have his back turned. Only a bumpy figure was left. The next moment, Bixian's head turned 180 degrees. It was obviously a beautiful face, but the killing god only felt horrified at this moment. The fourth kind of supernatural. If the ghost turns back, he will die. Click. The head of the killing god was also twisted 180 degrees. Then, he fell straight to the ground. The rest of the fallen angel organization members who were still moving had their heads twisted 180 degrees at this moment and fell to the ground dead. Do it all. Bixian's naked ankle continued to move, leaving black footprints on the battlefield, while the miserable voice continued to echo. Xiao Ming, Xiao Li, Xiao Hong. Dead, Slaughter is actually dead. Seeing the death of the killing god, the already pale face of the poison god became even paler, with a bit of despair in his eyes. Not only because of the death of the god of slaughter, but also because of the four ghosts in front of him. Four identical and beautiful bridesmaids stood in front of him coldly. Sister, do you think there is a possibility that as long as we perform the best in this battle, our husband will reward us? The second sister, who was the most out of the box, spoke. The voice is like a spring breeze, charming to the bones. It's like the most extreme poison in the world. Humph, even if there was no reward, wouldn't you sneak into bed? Don't forget, we have a set of senses. Do you really think we don't know that you sneaked into your husband's bed many times? The eldest sister despises. That's right, the second sister is shameless, the fourth sister agreed. Actually, everything is fine, third sister said shyly. But one thing is true. Whoever performs better will have a better impression in the mind of her husband. It sounds like these voices are trying to please men. The poison god envoy couldn't hold himself any longer. He was only a 4-star player, so how could he allow 4 top red-clad ghosts to attack him? He couldn't guarantee that he could escape unscathed from just one top-notch red-clothed ghost. 4 of them, unless the 12 divine envoys of the fallen angel organization were all present, the result would be the same for everyone. That is death. No chance. No chance at all. No matter how superb his poisoning skills were, and he was the nemesis of the human sea tactics, it was useless in front of these 4 fierce ghosts. Plan for today. He can only use other people's lives to help him delay time. He didn't want to escape completely, but he just wanted to retain part of his supernatural powers. In this way, when he returned to the headquarters of the fallen angel organization, he could apply to use the paper man body collected by the headquarters to transform himself into a different kind of ghost. Although this would involve losing everything as a human being, under the one-sided massacre, this was the only way. The poison god envoy did not hesitate. Go to a crowded place and escape into it. Keek, why are you running? Didn't you realize that your head fell off? See it? The 4 bridesmaids looked at the poison god envoy at the same time. The sinister laughter made people's hair stand on end and also made everyone present feel confused. Lost your head? When did their heads fall off? The members of the fallen angel organization who were desperately escaping were stunned in place. Puzzled. Then, they began to examine their heads very seriously. He put his hands on the head and pulled it out gently. A horrifying scene happened. These people actually took off their own heads and examined them seriously. But his head is gone. They don't have eyes to check. After understanding this, a large pile of headless corpses fell. The head fell to the ground and rolled roundly. Saw this scene. The poison divine envoy felt a chill coming from the solace of his feet and directly into the sky. A different thought also spread in his heart. Is my head really still there? As soon as this thought occurred, the poison divine envoy's hand has been subconsciously placed on his head, as if he is straightening it and adjusting it. No. He screamed in horror. There was no stagnation in the movement, just a slight push. He took his own head out. Thump. A head full of fear rolled down. Giggle, Have you seen your own head? The unprovoked charming laughter echoed on the battlefield again. Humph, shameless, I don't need that person's reward. The ghost bride watched as her 4 supernatural puzzle pieces erupted in supernatural powers, harvesting the lives of these people piece by piece. She snorted coldly, showing some disdain. God of blood and tears? You don't want rewards, or if you really don't care, then what are you doing now? The grimace of the god of blood and tears was already crying, and his face was full of fear. I saw the ghost bride who was suspected to be the ghost king, her bright red robe fluttering in the wind, and a blood-like crimson spreading around her. This is the power of the ghost realm. This ghost bride is not only suspected of being a ghost king, but also possesses a ghost realm. The bright red ghost domain spreads out, and ghost blood flows on the ground. Wherever the ghost blood spreads, all living creatures will sink into it. Even the fierce ghosts in the ghost master's body will sink into ghost blood while wailing. No trace. This ghost bride kills more fiercely than all ghosts. The speed of the ghost realm's spread cannot be matched by other ghosts. You are so duplicitous. The god of blood and tears was completely speechless. Looking at the rapid spread of ghost blood, he knew that he would never be able to escape. The expansion of the ghost realm cannot be escaped with human speed. Ghost bride, let me go, and tell your husbands that I will never step foot here again from now on, and I will not tell anyone about anything here, otherwise don't blame me for dying with you. The god of blood and tears roared. The ghost bride glanced at the other party. 3 angels came to the scene. How could she stand out in her husband's eyes if she didn't kill one of them? She was going to kill this human being. The ghost bride stretched out her hand. The ghost realm began to spread in a line. The flowing ghost blood began to spread in one direction. In just a few breaths, he caught up with the god of blood and tears who had already run several hundred meters. The god of blood and tears saw this. A fierce look on his face. He roared angrily, even if I die, I will take you all away. Everything here will turn into purgatory. Said. The god of blood and tears took out a severed finger. Fresh and lifelike. It was as if it had just been dismembered from the body. The god of blood and tears showed a crazy look. It was not an ordinary finger, but a severed finger of a ghost. It was what he got when he entered a 4-star dungeon. To do this he unlocks an epic hidden mission. Collect puzzle pieces of ghosts and gods to piece together the bodies of ghosts and gods. Every time he finds a puzzle piece, he will get a special reward. Until the ghosts and gods are completely revived, he can become the dependent of the ghosts and gods. Since these people want him to die, then he will drag everyone here to be buried with him. The god of blood and tears inserted his severed finger into his heart. A strange white flower with slender stamens bloomed, and an unimaginable terrifying aura spread over the scene. Everyone present, all the ghosts, all looked at it in horror. Ghost King. Not only that, this supernatural force is still soaring, the abyss, no, the unsolvable Ghost King. This human has resurrected a severed finger of a ghost. The 4 bridesmaids were horrified at the same time. At this moment, the spirit of the god of blood and tears is constantly rising, and the aura of a living person is getting less and less, until finally, his body is completely controlled by another consciousness. A supernatural being has soared to the 3rd stage of the Ghost King, which has no solution. A top Ghost King arrived so suddenly. And the relying object is just a severed finger of the ghost and god. The ghost bride spread the ghost blood onto the body of the god of blood and tears. In an instant, a mandala flower on the opponent's heart glowed with white light. The invincible ghost blood lost its supernatural power, avoided this body, and was even more helpless. Sink it? This moment. The whole place was dead silent. A top ghost king, the one who dominates the whole field. What's even more horrifying is that what is coming to this human body is probably the will of a ghost or god. The god of blood and tears suddenly raised his head. He made a strange sound that sounded like a man or a woman, and his voice was a little crazy. He, dismembering myself can indeed break free from the restrictions of the deep ghost realm. I finally came to life. I succeeded. I am the first ghost and god to come. This world will offer me a crown made of blood and tears for my coming. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shiyubuletin Chigwa. Chapter 276. Just when everyone was fighting for life and death, Shenjian has arrived at Villa No 001. He has been ignoring the river goddess. On the one hand, the ghost town is about to open. He needs to clear the 4-star dungeon bloody paper shop as soon as possible so as not to miss the opening of the ghost town. On the other hand, he only made the river goddess compromise by threatening the life of the river goddess's son. Without this weakness, given the level of hatred the river goddess had towards him, he would have met with swords long ago. I would rather die than surrender to him, let alone recognize him as my master. This is the dignity of an abyss-level ghost that is infinitely close to it. Therefore, Shenjian decided to let her go for a while. Now, most of the bloody paper shop dungeon has been solved, and it's time to make the river goddess obedient. Crunch. Shenjian pushed open the door and entered. The river goddess is sitting in the room. He held a book titled 5,000 Years in the World in his hand. She looked at it very seriously and was very involved. Absorbing knowledge and enriching one's own cognition. Shenjian was startled. I immediately remembered the introduction of the netherworld eye to the river goddess past and present lives. Talented woman in ancient times. This is an ancient man who once lived in ancient times. By chance, he became the river god. Having lived in Xiaoluhe all her life, she would not miss the opportunity to learn about the world. Shenjian looked over. The river goddess is still wearing the same bright red paper wedding dress, with a faint expression on her pretty face. Full of classical charm. The incandescent light shines on her face, giving her a somewhat bookish look. There is also the elegance unique to scholars. Shenjian had only felt this kind of temperament in the plain-clothed lady of the bloody paper shop. If the two of them met, they would definitely have something in common. While thinking, the river goddess had already noticed Shenjian's entry. She turned around and looked at Shenjian with a complicated expression. Nearly 600 years have passed since my time. During these 600 years, things and people have changed, and everything has become different. She began to sigh. Her appearance is endearing, making people want to hold the best things in the world in front of her just for a beautiful smile. Shenjian paused and asked, "Are you from the Ming dynasty?" "According to your statement, yes, I was born during the Yongle period." Shenjian frowned. "Then how did you enter the world of horror?" The words of the river goddess revealed some unusual information. Shenjian originally thought that the other party lived in ancient times in a world of horror, but he didn't expect the river goddess to make shocking remarks and reveal that she was from the Yongle period. "Have no idea." To Shenjian's surprise, the river goddess shook her head. "I need more information to sort everything out." Shenjian was thoughtful. "There are clues to be found in this river goddess." Shenjian showed a smile. Approaching step by step, the original calm and elegant expression of the river goddess was suddenly broken. Her eyes began to dart around. 2 years to become this human are. She had long thought that this human being would be unable to bear it one day. It was just Shenjian's behavior of showing her off that she couldn't help but feel a little jealous, thinking that this human being would forget her. But now, the illusion is shattered. Shenjian walked up to her, raised his eyebrows and said, "As a servant, do you think you are qualified now? The master has come in, what should you do now? Since you are a talented woman of the Ming dynasty, you should know how to serve your husband." The river goddess slowly lowered her head and made a weak voice. Master, master. Look up at me. As a servant, you are very incompetent and must be punished. Ready for punishment, huh? Shen Jian frowned suddenly. His eyes immediately froze. In the pupils of the eyes, a flash of extreme light flickered. It was like the sound of hell playing the Suana. Court death. The form of King Yama, 40%. At the same time, the street where Daxia Longke is located. There was dead silence. The situation is unpredictable and beyond everyone's imagination. Qian Quan watched with his own eyes as the members of the fallen angel organization were killed by ghosts from the underworld until they collapsed. This was a massacre with no suspense at all. A one-sided massacre. Under the night parade of 100 ghosts, no one can escape. Even the three great envoys of the fallen angel organization were killed one by the evil ghost's murderous rules. Till the end. Only one god of blood and tears was left to resist. The outcome of the battle seems to have been determined. But the next moment, the tide of battle turned. The god of blood and tears took out a severed finger of a ghost. At the cost of dying together, the will of a ghost and god came to the body. His body is so terrifying that he has reached the level of an unsolvable ghost king. Qian Quan's face turned pale. The unsolvable evil spirit. He'd only heard of it in the horror world. The Ghost King is divided into three major stages. There are Ghost King level ghosts, Abyss level ghosts, and No Solution level ghosts. This level of Ghost King has already reached the level of the top Ghost King, and even further, it is the legendary Ghost and God. An Abyss level ghost can destroy a city and cause a city-destroying disaster. What kind of supernatural events can the top Ghost King that comes to the real world cause? A country-level disaster? Think of this. Everyone was confused. Why did a civil unrest in a city rise to the level of a nation-destroying disaster? The other side. A neutral voice that sounded like a man or a woman was still sounding from the body of the god of blood and tears. The will of this ghost and god seemed extremely crazy, and his tone was full of crazy words. My name is Manchuo Ghost God. I am the first ghost god to come to this world. The ownership of this world belongs to me. The face of Manchuo Ghost and God is completely distorted. Well, it's so good of a human being in this body to think of reviving my will before dying. In this case, I don't need to let others collect my puzzle pieces. Give me 100 years and I will fully recover. Let me see, before this human being dies, he seems to want me to make a big fuss and turn this place into purgatory. Manchuo Ghost laughed. What kind of request is this? I satisfied him. Said. The other party's eyes suddenly focused on the ghost bride in the venue. You were the one who prompted him to die together. If his dying request didn't include letting you die, I would really have to thank you. Mondo ghosts and gods came step by step. The ghost bride's heart trembled, and the ghost realm erupted again. The bright red ghost realm spread, and ghost blood flowed on the ground, pulling the ghost and god into the bottom of the endless abyss. Manchuo Ghost and God just glanced at it. He turned a blind eye and walked over. His feet stepped on the ghost blood, and no matter how supernatural the ghost blood pulled him, it could not shake his footsteps at all. We're here to help you. The four bridesmaids murmured, and the vicious and cold fatal curse broke out. Supernatural fluctuations enveloped the other party. Invalid. This is psychic nullification. It's the difference between a half-step ghost king and a top ghost king, or even in the status of ghosts and gods. Miss Mary, the ripped girl, one on the left and one on the right, swung the decapitating sword and the ghost sickle at the same time. Manchuo Ghost looked at Ghost Sickle in horror. Ghostland flickers. When he reappeared, he was already 10 meters away. What's going on with this ghost weapon of yours? He spoke. The twisted and ferocious look on his face dissipated a bit, revealing a trace of surprise. The ghost sickle was obviously just an ordinary ghost weapon, but he noticed the extraordinary aura on it. It was a ghost weapon that had been mastered by beings above ghosts and gods, already possessing a trace of extraordinary supernatural fluctuations. He might get hurt if he gets hit. I want this weapon. The eyes of Manchuo ghost and god flashed with salivation. The ghost realm swept through again. This place turned into a world of bones and blood. White bones poked out their palms, awakening from earthly slumber. A ghost slave, with only bones left, kept crawling out. The roar of ghosts crying and wolves howling came from the mouth. The number of ghost slaves continues to increase, and soon exceeds the number of ghost slaves from the underworld present, and is still increasing. Everyone fell into despair. Even the ghost bride gritted her teeth and showed a twisted expression. The gap between the top ghost king and the ghost king is too big. There is no comparison at all between supernatural beings. Money is as broad as death. Just after escaping from the wolf's den, he enters the tiger's den again. Does Shen Jian know everything that happens here? The idea just came to mind. Qingshi. A pair of dark-colored pupils that seemed to have existed forever appeared in the sky above the boundless sky. The eyes in the pupils moved slightly, glancing towards the Daxia Longke branch. This glance. It seemed like it spanned the whole world. At a glance, I noticed Qingshi. At a glance, he entered the ghost realm covered by Manduo ghosts and gods. At this time, a gloomy light fell on this ghost realm, driving away the blood rain and annihilating the bone ghost slaves. It also attracted everyone's attention. That moment, everyone subconsciously raised their heads and froze in place. The sky cracked. A pair of dark eyes seemed to have become the fulcrum of the world. For the first time, the eyes of the gods fell on this land that no one paid attention to. God's eyes are watching all this. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Yubuletin Chigua. Chapter 277. Qingshi. Above the boundless sky, there are dark clouds. The dark clouds piled up by countless thick clouds carry a deep darkness, which is daunting, and after looking at it for a long time, you will feel a sense of despair. At this time, under the dark clouds, an extreme light suddenly bloomed with a dark and obscure light. It's like breaking free from a heavy prison. It tore a long and narrow hole in the sky. This long and narrow opening was stretched wider and wider. At last, the bright light illuminates the entire Qingshi. It was like God casting a ray of light above the 9 heavens. This moment, everyone raised their heads blankly, looking at the pair of huge pupils shining with deep light above the boundless sky. Those are a pair of eyes that seem to have been suspended in the sky for eternity. It is the gods who pay attention to the human world. This made them suddenly realize that it was not the sky that had split open just now, but the huge pair of pupils that were opening their eyes. My old mother. Jesus, what did we see? God, there really is a God in this world. The great, holy, eternal, God who cannot be looked directly at. Praise God. This moment. Whether it was the members of the fallen angel organization who survived to the end or the members of the Daxia dragon bird who had been watching the battle, they all felt shock from the deepest part of their hearts. That was a scene that was enough to shake the mind and collapse the worldview. All that was left in their eyes was dullness, and all that was left in their mouths was murmuring. All words seemed weak at this moment. All descriptions were eclipsed at this moment. Qian Quan was also shocked. The magnificence of the scene left him speechless, and he could only stand there, surrendering to this pair of dark eyes. Deep in his heart, he felt a sense of insignificance in the face of the vastness of the universe, which made him a little breathless and made him feel that human beings were too humble in the face of such a great and lofty scene. Who is that? Is it Shenjian? But can this kind of power really be possessed by an underworld city god? The city god is just a middle-level person in the underworld. Although he is the underworld god, there are thousands of similar underworld gods. If every city god had such great power, how did the underworld disappear in the first place? Emotionally, he wanted to believe that it was Shenjian. But rationally, he wasn't sure. Although the pair of dark eyes gave him a sense of familiarity, he was not sure because those huge eyes spanning the endless sky were too sacred, too solemn, and too majestic, showing the inability to look directly at a god incisively and vividly. This made him feel a little strange. In his impression, Shenjian had never shown such a majestic posture. The performance in thriller games can be regarded as having fun. It was difficult for him to associate the infinite high-altitude eye of God with Shenjian. This moment, whether it is the fallen angel organization or the great Xiaolonke, their mentality has undergone earth-shaking changes. The only performance at the scene was a bit bland. Definitely on the underworld side. Kizashi has only a shallow sanity and only knows how to follow orders. I don't know what fear is. The 9 beautiful female ghosts who spent time with Shenjian recognized Shenjian the moment their dim eyes opened the sky. He is their husband. Sadako raised her head, revealing a charming face. It was a charming face that could only be shown in front of Shenjian. Miss Mary's face was covered with black gauze, but she was very familiar with Shenjian's aura. She held her face in her hands, and a flush appeared on her delicate face. Under the slit female mask, an exaggerated arc was revealed, and the ghost sickle was vibrating. Vixian is as cold as an iceberg that does not melt. During the whole massacre, her performance was comparable to that of the ghost bride. However, such a ferocious and completely uncontrollable ghost could still show a faint smile in front of Shenjian. The 4 sisters of the Bai family held their hands together tightly, feeling the touch transmitted from their sisters, their eyes filled with admiration. The ghost bride's ferocious and twisted face suddenly disappeared, and a beautiful face also showed a smile. In terms of making people feel reassured, Shenjian has never disappointed. This is true now and it will be true in the future. If she had known Shenjian from the beginning, she would not have been forced into a secret marriage and sealed in a coffin with a dead body. However, in such a dead silence, it is a scene to pay homage to the gods. But suddenly there was an inappropriate sharp sound. Impossible, this is impossible. Who are you? Which ghost and god are you? Why have I never seen you before? How could your power recover so quickly? The ghosts and gods of Manduo looked at the pair of dim eyes in the sky and kept roaring, their eyes about to burst. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Apart from him, there were actually people who had escaped from the deep ghost realm one step ahead of him and had recovered their strength early. This supernatural power is simply scarier than when he was at his peak. How could such a ghost and god arrive earlier than him and regain the power of his heyday in such a short period of time? He doesn't understand. But that didn't stop his liver from being broken by fright. Because he realized that the owner behind these dark eyes had locked onto him. It was simply impossible for him to escape from the opponent's hands just by relying on the supernatural power revived by this amputated finger. Then, Manchuo ghost and god said in horror, I didn't know that this place has become your territory. If I can, I will leave and never set foot in your territory. And we can join forces. Although I am not as good as you in life, I am still the same. You can help me find the supernatural puzzle pieces. When I recover, we can enter the deep ghost realm and kill all the other ghosts and gods. Mondo ghosts and gods kept extending olive branches. I hope Shenjian will forgive him for once. In order to escape from the deep ghost realm, he did not hesitate to dismember himself into countless pieces, and with the determination that he would never be able to recover, he threw himself out of the cage. He didn't want to fall into sleep again. This body right now is his last hope. However, The huge dark pupil in the boundless sky ignored the suggestion of the Manchuo ghost and god, and there was even a trace of imperceptible disgust in his eyes, as if he felt that it was useless to catch this ghost and god. His eyes immediately became indifferent. The Mondo ghosts and gods stared at the ground like ants. There was no emotion in his eyes, as if everything in this world was too small and too humble to touch him in the slightest. His superior attitude is clearly evident. Next moment, the dark eyes moved. His eyes rolled slightly. For some reason, the huge eyes in the sky only moved slightly, but everyone present felt like the world was falling apart. When the sight shifts to Manduo ghosts and gods. Click 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 click. Just with a casual glance, there was a sound like a shattering mirror. No. Don't ruin my hopes. Mandu ghosts and gods screamed in fear. Struggling feebly. But the moment the dark eyes turned to him, his fate was doomed. You deserve to die, I will find you completely, and let you fall into the deepest ghost realm. The roaring sound has not finished yet. A white mandala flower rooted in the heart of the god of blood and tears. At this moment, it suffered an unprecedented supernatural attack. In just an instant, the mandala flower turned into powder. A severed finger fell off. The bright red, lifelike qualities are disappearing. It became gray and speckled with corpses. The supernatural fluctuations completely dissipated. The body of the god of blood and tears also fell into pieces at the same time. Do it all. The dark eyes in the boundless sky slowly closed. The sky above Qingxi was once again obscured by thick dark clouds. Looking at this scene, the scene suddenly fell silent. After a long time, the sound of swallowing was heard at the scene. Everyone's eyes were dull. Shock. Horrified. Awe. Fear. Heavy emotions began to build up in their minds. The divine power just now was still echoing in Qian Quan's mind. A top ghost king, an unsolvable powerful ghost, and the object of the will of ghosts and gods, under those majestic, sacred, and eternal huge eyes, he was crushed to death without even holding on for half a second. That posture, that relaxed look, that stern look in his eyes was like crushing an ant to death. It left an indelible memory in his heart. Ah, great and sacred and. Qian Quan began to murmur subconsciously. Then he reacted. He was completely stunned. He has begun to admire and even fear the owner of this pair of huge eyes from the bottom of his heart. This is not surprising. When people begin to fear God, it often begins when the gods display their power. Faced with such a majestic force, no one is immune. There was only one question left in his mind, whether the owner of those huge eyes was Shen Jian. What is his true identity in the underworld? City god? No. The city god definitely does not have such power. In his heart, there were already some vague guesses. The city god is not so powerful. But the king of hell, who is above the city god, can possess such great power. Shen Jian is the king of hell in the underworld. The other side. Shen Jian withdrew his deep eyes. He showed a very disgusted expression. I thought it was some big fish, but it was just the will of a ghost and god. Make him happy in vain. Such a spirit body of ghosts and gods is as worthless as a paper man. Not only cannot the 18 levels of hell be unlocked, but the current hell cannot control such an existence. It was of no use to him at all. But it was the deep ghost realm mentioned by the other party that made him somewhat interested. This was obviously not the first time he had heard the word. While Fairy Ghost and God hates him, the game panel also shows prompts that Fairy Ghost and God want to break free from the shackles of the deep ghost realm and descend into the horror world. This is enough to show that the horror game used some method to send all these ghosts and gods to a place where serious ghosts are imprisoned. The Manchuo ghost and god is the first ghost and god so far to break free from the deep ghost realm and revive by chance. While thinking, Master, Master, are you still there? The voice of the river goddess brought him back to reality. Of course I'm here. Shen Jian walked over. What did you do just now? Why are you so slow? Listening to the sound of Shen Jian approaching, the river goddess felt her heart beat faster. Do not worry about it. Shen Jian came over. He said casually. I just crushed a jumping ant to death. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Yu Buletin Chi Gua. Chapter 278. Time flies. As the huge pupils disappeared, the battlefield quickly entered the cleaning stage. Countless ghosts were wandering around the scene with numb expressions and dead eyes. They held soul-binding bags and stuffed all the dead members of the fallen angel organization into them and brought them back to the underworld. Qian Quan looked at this scene. Unsettled mood. If he hadn't seen this unnatural scene in advance, who would have dared to believe that there was still a pair of divine eyes entrenched in the vast sky above Qingxi, watching the world? He became more and more curious. What role did Shen Jian play in this? What is his identity in the underworld? City god? Or is it higher? While thinking, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a figure from the corner of his eye. Wei, Mr. Wei. Qian Quan suddenly froze as he looked at the center of the battlefield, Wei Wuliang, who was wearing a black yinchi robe and also seducing his soul. My head was even more confused. Because he saw dead people. Some time ago, a pillar of the Qingxi branch's ghost master passed away due to his own reasons. The soul was taken away by the legendary underworld. This person is Mr. Wei Wuliang. And he was the witness to all this. He used the supernatural power of the garden mirror to observe this historic scene. Witnessed the whole process of the underworld's evil deeds. However, he saw Mr. Wei now. Wearing black official robes, walking on the battlefield, engaging in seduction. The impact of the scene was huge. Inevitable. He walked over. Mr. Wei, is it really you? You're not. Qian Quan hesitated. Wei Wuliang also felt a little emotional. He was the oldest ghost controller in the Qingxi Daxia Longke branch. He had already become a ghost controller when the Qingxi branch was first established. In his eyes, Qian Quan was just a ghost fighter. Younger generation. He originally thought that he would never be able to return to the place he fought for, but he didn't expect that Lord Cheng Huang would be so kind and willing to let him come back. After all, when the contract was signed, it was recorded in detail that the Yinchi were not allowed to interfere in the affairs of the human world, and they were not allowed to have too much contact with the Yang world. He is now breaking the rules. But it was also a violation of the city god's promise. It's me. I asked for Lord Cheng Huang's permission and wanted to come over to help. Unexpectedly, Lord Cheng Huang had already made arrangements. Wei Wuliang shook his head. Lord City God. Have you met, Lord City God? Qian Quan's eyes widened. This is a major discovery. No, I haven't seen it, but haven't you already seen the mighty power of Lord City God? Wei Wuliang looked up. His eyes were full of awe. It seems that there is still an eye in the boundless sky watching this land. Is that really the city god? Qian Quan raised his doubts. He didn't believe that a middle-level yin god in the underworld possessed such great power. Yes and no. There was a mysterious look on Wei Wuliang's face. I am now a spy in the underworld. I cannot reveal too much about the underworld, otherwise it will be regarded as a breach of contract. But the Lord City God is by no means just a city god. He has been in this position for a long time and has the priesthood. There have been changes. This was Wei Wuliang's speculation based on the ghost teacher's words. According to the ghost teacher, he is the heir to the city god's temple. As long as he is able to manage the city god's temple, he will become the new city god's candidate. Naturally, the previous city god could only be promoted. But secrets like this inside the underworld are also unspeakable secrets, and he cannot reveal too much. So I can only say a few words in an ambiguous tone. After a while, he emphatically warned Qian Quandao, don't have a conflict with the underworld, let alone have any misunderstanding with the man from the city god's temple. The consequences of that are something Daxia Longke cannot afford. Lord City God is the protector of Qingxi, and this will never change. Wei Wuliang finally said something low and serious. Mr. Wei, haven't you ever seen the city god? There are some people who don't need to be seen. You can tell who they are just by looking at their actions. This is the case with the city god. He is an upright, serious, conscientious, and good city god who handles supernatural events in Qingxi day and night. His presence is a blessing to Qingxi. Finished. Wei Wuliang left. Continue to clean the battlefield. Qian Quan. This. He looked at each other a little bit. Did he blame Shen Jian wrongly? Although he behaves very crazy in the thriller game, torturing and beating evil ghosts, and seems a little crazy, and even wants to keep beautiful female ghosts, but is he actually a good city god? Everything you do is for the development of the underworld, not for your own selfish desires. Qian Quan felt a little ashamed in his heart. Mr. Wei is the first example of someone who has become a shady person in the underworld, and his words are very credible. It was him who misunderstood Shen Jian. The other side. Hades. Shen Jian brought the river goddess to this place. Here it is. The river goddess wiped the marks around her mouth, rubbed her cheeks again, and her tone was a little vague. Hell. Looking at the ghosts that were constantly being transported back, a smile appeared on Shen Jian's face. Excluding the Mondo ghosts and gods who finally arrived, the results of this battle in the underworld were very significant. The night parade of 100 ghosts, caused by the evil deeds of 9 dead men, has a lineup that is enough to destroy ordinary 4-star dungeons. I believe it will be soon. Qingxi will be completely under the control of the city god's palace. In Binhai City, he has also taken precautions and ordered people to start rebuilding the city god's temple. He believes that within a few months, the second city god's temple will be built. As for Wei Wuliang, I believe he has already connected with Daxia Longke. The dead are resurrected and become evil agents, and the news of their rebirth will spread throughout the great Xia Longke, contributing their own strength to the talent pool of the underworld. By then, the underworld will have entered a highly developed stage. Everything is going on in an orderly manner. Soon. A ghost officer handed him the spoils of the battle. That's a severed finger. It is one of the puzzle pieces of Manchuo ghosts and gods. It was dark, covered with corpses, and filled with an ominous atmosphere. A scarlet panel emerged. It is detected that the player is carrying one of the mandala ghost puzzle pieces, which can activate the hidden mission. Activate now. Yes. Hidden mission has been opened. Hidden mission, find ghosts and gods puzzle pieces. Task conditions, collect the 6 major parts of the ghost and god's left arm, left leg, right leg, torso, and head to successfully revive the ghost and god and become a dependent of the ghost and god. Note, this is currently an epic hidden mission. You can get special rewards for each part of the puzzle you collect. Look at the information on the panel. Shen Jian was thoughtful. This mandala ghost is cruel enough. Even if he dismembers himself like this, he must forcefully break away from the restrictions of the deep ghost realm. You must know that this level of dismemberment, if no one helps, is basically the same as death. That's why he acted so fearful when faced with Shen Jian's supernatural attack. After all, this is likely to be the opponent's last chance to recover. Thinking. Shen Jian had already brought the river goddess to a huge stone platform. That's a big pool. The ancient and vast walls towered high, with stone pillars standing one after another, and 9 unknown ancient beasts entwined around each stone pillar. The yin energy in the pool is so strong that it seems to have condensed into mist, and the mist turned into water and fell into the pool. A spectacular scene. This is Netherworld Pond. It was the reward Shen Jian received after appearing in the city god's temple. The Netherworld Pond contains rich yin qi, which can increase the yin qi content in the underworld. A wisp of yin energy was inhaled between Shen Jian's breath. Yin qi at 100. In an instant, he felt refreshed and the yin energy surged in his body. This is another function of Netherworld Pond. Refine yourself and strengthen your soul. It is one of the wonders of the underworld. It may not be as famous as the Sea of Flowers on the other side of the Wangchuan River, but it is an indispensable resource for the underworld. The ghosts of some Nuyins who entered the underworld for the first time stayed in the Yang world for 7 days, and only a trace of their souls were left. At this time, the Netherworld pool was needed to help baptize and stabilize the ghost bodies. This is also the first time that Netherworld Pond has been put into use. Shen Jian divided it into 2 areas. A common one. One for private use. When approaching here, the river goddess blushed and covered her face. In the huge inkstone pool, there were 9 beautiful figures stretching their proud figures in the water. What shocked the river goddess even more was that these people were only wearing thin swimsuits. The styles are the same, but the colors are different. Sadeko wore a white swimsuit and spread her long flowing hair in the water. Her face was full of water and was mesmerizing. Miss Mary was dressed in black. She seemed to love this deep black color. She took off the black gauze on her face, tied up her hair simply, and leaned against the stone platform with her eyes closed. The slit girl wore a cyan, slightly narrow swimsuit, showing off her pride to the fullest. Bixian prepared purple. Her cool temperament was completely inconsistent with this glamorous swimsuit. The 2 completely different temperaments were mixed together. Instead of being incoherent, there was an urge to let people conquer her. The 4 bridesmaids wore swimsuits in 4 colors: orange, yellow, blue and red. The moment they poked their 4 identical heads out of the water, the center of the world seemed to converge on them. 4 colors, 4 styles, 4 charms. The eldest sister is mature, the second sister is lively, the third sister is dignified, and the fourth sister is quiet. The ghost bride was sitting by the pool, with her head resting on one knee, gazing at the pool surface. Her hot figure against the light red swimsuit made people unable to take their eyes away. There is also no fat on the body, and the extremely pale Yangliu's slender waist is undoubtedly exposed. Look at this ridiculous scene. Just as the river goddess was about to escape from here, Shen Jian said calmly, "When you soak in the water here for the first time, it can refine the yin qi and help you successfully break through the abyss-level ghosts. Don't you want to try it?" The river goddess had a meal. She pursed her lips and said, "Then do I also need to wear that immoral swimsuit? What do you think?" Shen Jian raised his eyebrows, took out a black object that could barely cover, and threw it to the river goddess. The river goddess took a look. "I feel so dry." She found that compared with the era she lived in, not only the standard of living here had improved, but the level of immorality had also increased. This kind of clothing can expose 99% of the things, how can it be considered underwear? Her eyes were complicated. This man is a devil. His words are like a trap thrown by the devil. While tempting, they can also drag people into the abyss. But the temptation to advance to the abyss-level ghost is really too great. Now she is only half a step away from officially advancing to the abyss level, and the effect of the netherworld pool is not unnoticeable to her. The yin energy that is so rich that it can turn into atomized water is simply the most nourishing medicine for evil spirits. It cannot even be compared with the meat of flesh ghosts. She had an intuition that after one dip, she would be able to advance to the abyss level. By the time, maybe she could defeat Shen Jian on her own. Escape from his clutches. The price is just to be desecrated a few more times before that. Think of this. The river goddess was extremely entangled in her heart. She found that since becoming this man's servant, her bottom line was getting lower and lower. Especially the scene where he was blindfolded and his wrists tied in Villa No. 001 a few hours ago is still vivid in his mind. If she hadn't been blindfolded and couldn't see anything, she might have given up long ago. And now? He also asked her to enter this square pool, put on this swimsuit that was even worse than a hookup woman, and completely display herself in front of this man. This was too much beyond her psychological endurance. Shen Jian was not in a hurry. He slowly entered the netherworld pond. The moment he soaked in the pool, a kind of comfort from the depths of his soul spread throughout his body, and the yin energy in his body surged and increased dramatically. Especially when Judeo's graceful figure came close to him, he could feel that the yin qi was growing as fast as a rocket. Yin qi add 500. Yin qi add 500. Yin qi add 500. Shen Jian saw this and couldn't help but sigh. Follow this schedule. He is not far away from the third stage of the Ghost King divided into the horror world, the unsolvable Ghost King. The Ghost King is 10,000 yin qi. Abyss-level ghosts have 30,000 yin qi. The unsolvable level devil has 50,000 yin qi. And he is now. Shen Jian glanced at the panel. Yin qi, 36,000. Not long after, a figure slowly entered the pool. Shen Jian opened his eyes and took a look. His eyes lit up. At this time, the river goddess had already put on the swimsuit he had carefully prepared. It was a black one. This is the most suitable color for a mature and classical woman like the river goddess. Her unencumbered white waist looks particularly white against the black background. Lord, Master. The river goddess said shamefully. It suits you quite well. The corners of Shen Jian's lips curled up. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Yu Buletin Chi Gua. Chapter 279. This night. It's bound to be a sleepless night. Just when Shen Jian was enjoying a feast for many people, the Daxia Longke headquarters has exploded. During a video conference, Qian Quan told everything in detail. The three major angels of the fallen angels organized a night attack. 100 ghosts walk at night. A top ghost king has arrived. As well as huge pupils in the endless sky. Qian Quan continued, according to Mr. Wei, we can overturn the previous speculation. Shen Jian is not just as simple as the city god of the underworld. The greatness and sacredness of that scene cannot be explained clearly in a few words. That it is not a power that a city god can possess. At the meeting, there was dead silence. Everyone was silent. I was shocked to the core by this sudden news. Just listening to what Jian Quan said, this picture appeared in their minds. Above Qingxi, the gods opened their long sleeping eyes, and for the first time set their sights on the human world, staring at them with dark eyes. Here, everything collapsed and everything turned into powder. Even a top ghost king will die instantly with a slight sweep from the gods. This is amazing. At this time, a voice sounded. According to you, what is your theory? Qian Quan looked. It was the ancient instructor of the demon city who spoke. The scale of the demon city was not comparable to that of a third-tier small city like Qingxi. This ancient instructor who controlled the demon city branch was even more important. Moreover, he heard that Shen Jian also had some close contacts with this ancient instructor. Recently, a tutorial video for new players to quickly get started with the thriller game was circulated within Daxia Longke. It is said that Shen Jian is the leader. Qian Quan was silent for a moment. I think Shen Jian is not the city god, but one of the 10 kings of hell above the city god. As soon as these words came out, everyone took a breath. The sudden appearance of a city god in the underworld has caused a sensation all over the country. Now he told them that this was not a city god, but the king of hell above the city god. There are countless city gods, who belong to the middle-level backbone of the underworld. However, the king of hell, there are only 10 in the entire underworld. He is one of the real high-level people in the underworld. To a certain extent, it can already affect the normal operation of the underworld. If any one of them is missing, it will cause big problems in the underworld. One can imagine how much weight a king of hell has. Which one of the 10 kings of hell do you think he will be? The ancient instructor spoke again. As one of the members who had witnessed Shen Jian's great power, he had also doubted Shen Jian's identity as a city god. It's just that I can't prove it. Didn't you notice one detail? His name may be a naked reminder. Qian Quan murmured softly. He opened the game panel, and the friend he saw was Shen Jian at the top. And Shen Jian's game name is King of Yama. Everyone fell silent. Until the ancient instructor smiled bitterly and said, King Yama, the owner of the 5th palace of the underworld, is said to be in charge of the 5th palace of the underworld. He is also the most famous king of hell in the mythology of the underworld. I never dared to think in this direction. These words received everyone's approval. Without him, King Yama is too famous. He was so famous that they didn't even believe that Shen Jian was the legendary king of hell. In their inherent impression, King Yama should be similar to Bao Zheng. But Shen Jian is too detached. His behavior was full of dominance. It is completely different from the legendary image of King Yama. It should even be said that it subverted the image of King Yama. Whether he is the king of hell or not, we can verify in the future, but I believe no one objects to the speculation that he is the king of hell. Understanding the purpose of the underworld is the current focus. At this time, an old man spoke. Also, the matter of Wei Wuliang becoming a shady agent and appearing in the human world needs to be temporarily sealed. Qian Quan was stunned, but everyone at the scene saw it. Then slow down the spread of the news. This is a critical time when supernatural events occur frequently. Once word spreads that the underworld can live forever, the world will be completely in chaos. Qian Quan nodded. If you do too much merit, you may be taken away by Yin Cai and become Yin Cai after death. If this matter got out, he couldn't imagine what would happen. An image came to his mind. When ghost masters are about to die, they hold their breath and go to Qingxi by train, plane, or even a taxi. In case someone wakes up midway. This picture is so terrible. The current Qingxi city has no way to deal with so many incidents of resurgence of evil ghosts. Unless Shen Jian makes it clear that he wants to be the person in charge of Qingxi. In this case, even if the ghost master Li Gui revives, Qingxi will have enough confidence to deal with these supernatural events. Time flies. End of the meeting. Another piece of information has been permanently sealed. Shen Jian, one of the kings of hell in the underworld, is suspected to be the king of hell. The next day, Shen Jian woke up. Excellent military exploits. His eyes subconsciously looked at the beautiful people lying around beside him. After fighting for a whole day and night, they successfully killed the female ghosts. Even the abyss-level ghosts like the river goddess Empress fell into a deep sleep, and their original -80 points of favorability had dropped to -20. The reason for such a big span was naturally that after the river goddess was promoted to the abyss-level ghost, she launched another challenge to him. In order to completely defeat the opponent's resistance, Shen Jian did not hold back at all and defeated her in an instant. Let the river goddess know that no matter what she does, she can never escape from his grasp. Out of the underworld. Shen Jian's eyes moved to the game panel. Player, King Yama. Level 41. Identity, King of Yama, King of Qingguang, King of Shijiang, Emperor of Song Dynasty. Ability, Pressure of Ghosts and Gods, Ghost Aura, Blood of Ghosts and Gods, Good Omen of Ghosts and Gods, Power of Ghosts and Gods, Eyes of Ghosts and Gods, Heart of Ghosts and Gods, Communication between Yin and Yang. Strength, 105, the limit for ordinary people is 10. Speed, 105. Yin Chi, 39,000. Thriller Coin, 230000. Real Estate, Room 101, Unit 3, Swequan Community, Rebirth Villa, Supernatural Game Park, Blood Moon High School, Huanquan Ward, and Bloody Paper Shop. Title, Dungeon Destroyer, Passive, Blood Spring Community Owner, Real Estate Tycoon, Lord of the Past, Passive, Principal of Blood Moon High School, Passive, Nanjiang District's #1 Tyrant, Ghost Seeking Sorrow, Passive, Bloody Paper Shop Boss. Special Status, Attention from Glorious Ghosts and Gods. Special Status, Ghost Taoists Hatred. Special Status, Ferry the Hatred of Ghosts and Gods. Look at the panel introduction above. Shen Jian was a little thoughtful. He calculated that there were still 24 days until the ghost town opened. There is plenty of time. Shen Jian tore off a copy clearance coupon. Countdown, 00:00. Welcome players back to the thriller game. It has been detected that the player's level has reached the standard, and a 3-star upgrade copy will be conducted soon. It is detected that the player is wearing the title of Dungeon Collapser, and the game becomes more difficult. If a player is detected wearing the title Ghost Seeing Sorrow, the copy will have a certain chance of mutating. The copy is loading. You have completed the match. Copy, Nanjiang City Lord's Mansion. Content, the Nanjiang City Lord's Mansion is the absolute overlord of Nanjiang District. Due to the City Lord's seclusion, the City Lord's Palace gradually divided into 2 major factions, fighting openly and secretly to compete with each other. Number of players, 10 people. Main mission, join any faction and survive the power struggle. Side mission. Task tip, it's good to be a transparent person. Difficulty, 3 stars. As the scarlet panel flashed by, Shen Jian opened his eyes. The surrounding scene has turned into a huge luxurious mansion. Shen Jian didn't have time to be surprised. The panel in front of me has appeared again. The current game is a player camp confrontation mission. Players can choose a camp at will. Faction 1, City Lord's Wife. Faction 2, Deputy City Lord. It has been detected that the player carries the attention of the City Lord's Wife, and you have automatically joined the City Lord's Wife's camp. Note, players are asked to hide their identities. Finished reading. A trace of surprise flashed in Shen Jian's eyes. He just made a mistake. I thought this was the City Lord competition. But upon closer inspection, this is just a survival mission. You just need to join either camp. And because he was noticed by the City Lord's Wife, his camp automatically changed to the City Lord's Wife. Shen Jian was thoughtful. He was a little surprised that his copy of the 3-star promotion actually matched the City Lord's Palace. If you look at it this way, he might not have to wait for the City Lord tournament. Shen Jian's face showed a hint of excitement. Completely changing the name of Nanjiang District is the first step for the underworld to invade the horror world. Just like he established the Hell Gate and the City God's Palace in the real world, as long as he occupies the City Lord's Mansion, he can naturally use it as a foundation to radiate the influence of the underworld to the entire area. While thinking, the other players in front of them also chose their camps. Each one's eyes flickered, secretly observing the reactions of other players. Everyone wants to know what camp the other party is in. Shen Jian glanced over. There are 9 players, 8 of whom are between level 38 and 40, but there is one person who is level 42. The ID is Yao Ye, a middle-aged man with heavy dark circles under his eyes and a look of sleep deprivation. Either he has skipped a level and challenged a 4-star dungeon, or he has used a special dungeon coupon to enter the game. Most of the other players' eyes fell on Shen Jian and this middle-aged man. His eyes were wary. Player camp versus mission, no teammates. Every player is a potential enemy. Soon, the door to the city lord's mansion opened. A group of members of the law enforcement team came out. It was a fierce ghost wearing ancient armor, and its yin qi fluctuated violently. Shen Jian's eyes moved. He once dealt with one of the city lord's mansion law enforcement teams. When we were in the dungeon of the villa of the past, it seemed like there was some kind of third team of law enforcers. The captain among them is not only a ghost king level ghost, but also has a good supernatural power, and his strength is comparable to the 3 bull-powered ghost kings. The terrifying ghost that appeared in front of him had a terrifying level close to that of the river goddess. It was a ghost that was infinitely close to the abyss level. Captain of the first team of enforcers. Thinking. Why are you still hanging around? Come with me. You should be grateful that the city lord's mansion has given you humans this honor. For work like inspecting the city, informal law enforcement team members are not allowed. You're in luck. The captain-level ghost shouted coldly. Shen Jian was thoughtful. Inspecting the city? Do you want him to be a city manager? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Yubuletin Chigua. Chapter 280. Walk out of the city lord's mansion. The fierce ghost wearing ancient armor looked back at the players and said, I am the silver-armored ghost king, the captain of the first team of law enforcers. Due to some reasons, the city lord's mansion lost a lot of strength, and there were more than a dozen positions left vacant in the third team of law enforcers. At the request of the deputy city lord, we have decided to select 3 humans who meet the requirements from you to join the city lord's mansion and become official members of the law enforcement team. Ha ha ha, you humans are lucky. You got this opportunity for nothing. I just don't know who among you has this honor. The silver-armored ghost king smiled sadly. The eyes looking at the players became playful. Hear this. All the players looked startled, then full of surprise. Do they have the opportunity to join the city lord's mansion and become official members of the law enforcement team? This news is amazing. As quasi 4-star players, they have already explored Nanjiang district very deeply, and naturally they also know who the real ruler of Nanjiang district is. The city lord's mansion is a very large supernatural place that governs Nanjiang district, and it is the only 4-star dungeon in Nanjiang district. The most famous thing about the city lord's mansion is the law enforcement team. This is a team that implements the will of the city lord's mansion. It has superior privileges and has the right to search any household. If he could join the city lord's mansion and become a formal member of the law enforcement team, he would be considered a success in Nanjiang district. The situation in the horror world will also transition from survival to stable development. This temptation is too great. No one can hold back. However, there are only 3 places. Think of this. The eyes of all the players became a little more wary. Shen Jian listened. He was also slightly startled. Guess this matter has something to do with him. He destroyed the 3rd team of law enforcers, leaving a vacancy in the law enforcement team of the city lord's mansion, and only then did he think of filling it with humans. The person who made the suggestion was the deputy city lord. Shen Jian was thoughtful. Thinking. The silver-armored ghost king continued to speak. He seemed to really want to see all kinds of suspicions among humans and kill each other, so he fanned the flames and said, Next, you will enter a city village for testing. Only the top 3 can become official team members, while the rest can only doing odd jobs in the city lord's mansion is very precarious. He paused and said with a sinister smile, the test topic is to knock on the doors of at least 2 households. Whoever knocks more doors will be the final winner. Of course, I only look at the results. If there are only 3 left, no matter how many households are knocked, they can become official members. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the players changed in shock. This silver-armored Ghost King actually encouraged them to kill each other. Knocking on the door of Li Gui's house is very dangerous. If someone is unlucky and knocks on the door of a red-clothed evil spirit, the only thing waiting for the player is death. And if you want to win this spot, conservatively estimate, you have to knock on the doors of 3 households. No one wanted to bet on the possibility. But killing other players seems much simpler. At this moment, everyone was secretly on guard. Even if some of them don't have this idea, others will have the idea if they can't protect everything. It's obviously not a good idea to put their lives on the conscience of other players. To this, the silver-armored Ghost King was very satisfied. He smiled with a majestic face. The gloomy voice makes people's hair stand on end when they hear it. Soon, destination arrived. This is a residential area with relatively backward living standards. The gloomy air is billowing. As soon as I stepped here, the surrounding temperature seemed to have dropped to freezing point, and a cold breath hit my face. All the players' faces turned pale. Start carefully observing the surrounding living environment. This test not only tests the player's hard power, but also is a competition of insight. If we can select some ghost residents with lower terror levels, it is not impossible to directly win the first place. Remember, you are here in the name of the law enforcement candidate team. The resident must be willing to hand over a token to you to successfully knock on a household. The silver-armored Ghost King finished speaking. Left here soon. Only a group of players were left looking at each other. Knocking on the door of the resident is not enough, but the ghost has to be willing to hand over something. Isn't this just toying with them? Which evil spirit doesn't look covetously at humans? The only way to get the other party to hand over something is to cultivate goodwill, but this is a test. How could the City Lord's Palace give them a month or 2 to cultivate goodwill? No matter how you look at it, killing is easier. Just kill 7 and they will automatically become full team members. All the players glanced at it. He glanced darkly. To this, Shen Jian didn't care. He was the first to take the first step into the urban village. Unseen by the other players, a hint of excitement appeared on his face. In the bloody paper-making shop dungeon, because the paper-making Ghost King transformed himself into a paper man, he failed to unlock the 14th level of hell. But in a copy of the supernatural cinema in the real world, he captured the entire set of banquet guests and collected half of the unlocking conditions. As for this urban village, he could collect the remaining half. Successfully unlocked the 14th level of hell. Soon, Shen Jian has entered the depths of the urban village. He stopped in front of a house. Think of your own identity. Candidates for the Law Enforcement Corps. Commonly known as urban management. Think about it. Shen Jian came to the door and patted it. Bang bang bang. There was a loud knock on the door, accompanied by Shen Jian's menacing voice. Is anyone home? Check the water meter. The devil inside seemed stunned for a moment. I was wondering, how much water does their home use every day? Is it necessary to check the water meter? It can't be some kind of pervert. Knock on the door like this. No one responded. Shen Jian changed his statement again. Bang bang bang. He slapped the door hard. The door made an overwhelming sound and was shaking, as if it would be exposed and pushed open in the next second. At the same time, there was also a fierce voice, hurry up, check the water meter. With that tone and demeanor, those who didn't know better thought he was a bully who bullied men and women. Crunch. As if shocked by Shen Jian's tone, the door slowly opened. A stooped ghost woman opened the door. Shen Jian's strong attitude made him feel a little overwhelmed. Until Granny Gu successfully saw Shen Jian knocking on the door. And noticed the vitality of Shen Jian. Granny Ghost. She couldn't hold herself any longer. She thought it was a member of the law enforcement team who came to blackmail her again. He dared to knock on her door like this, but it turned out to be just a human being. Granny Ghost had a question mark on her face. How dare you, a human being? Do you think I am too old to carry a knife? Her eyes gradually became dangerous. However, Shen Jian seemed not to have seen it. He glanced inside the house and said with a smile, "Old lady, I heard someone reported that your household water usage exceeds the standard and has seriously affected the water supply of other residents. Let me take a look." Ghost Granny? God, the water usage exceeds the standard. Since when has Nanjiang district ever taken charge of other people's water? She stared at Shen Jian, then turned sideways and said with a sinister smile, "Okay, come in quickly, come in and check more carefully." Said. There was even a ferocious look in her eyes. Regardless of whether this human being is from the city lord's mansion or not, as long as a human being dares to step into her family's territory, he will be killed even if he is a member of the law enforcement team. No one would come to settle a score with her because of a human being. Shen Jian walked in. Go through the entrance hall. Came to the spacious living room. I saw an old man and two children sitting at the dinner table, with an empty basin in front of them. Shen Jian looked over. The stomachs of the three ghosts were bulging, as if they had just eaten. But after Shen Jian walked in, he began to stare at Shen Jian with the naked eyes of a starving man. His eyes were cold, as if he was looking at a kind of food, which looked very penetrating. The two children also showed their fangs, which were bright red and stained with bits of meat. And Granny Ghost also closed the door completely and locked it with a sinister smile. He showed a smile that caught his prey. At this time, snapped. Shen Jian slapped the table with his hand and said solemnly, "Why are you laughing? Do you know how serious your problem is? How do you adults educate such a dirty and ugly child? Uncle Ghost? Ghost Granny? Ghost Kid?" Granny Gui was stunned for a moment after hearing this. What? How do we educate our children? Do we still need to discuss it with you? The breath of Granny Ghost stagnated. And just then, Shen Jian had already strode up to the two children, with a trace of disgust on his face. "Come and see, this child is so ugly, with heavy dark circles under his eyes, a sharp mouth, monkey cheeks, and red and bleeding teeth. You can tell he doesn't like her at a glance." Health. Shen Jian grabbed one of the ghost children and pinched the other person's neck, looking very professional. I took a few glances. It seems that I can't stand it anymore. He sighed with emotion. It's too ugly to look at. Ghost Kid. Caught in Shen Jian's hand, he danced with anger and grief on his face and gritted his teeth. Just be a human being. Is it really okay to say that in front of me? Can children's feelings be ignored? He looked angry. I was completely angered by Shen Jian's words. He was about to open his mouth and swallow Shen Jian in one go. But he got a big slap in his pussy. Snapped. Ghost Kid. What are you doing? Oh, I want to tell you that if you know you are ugly, you are terrible, but if you are terrible, you dare to show your ugliness in front of others. This is impolite. Shen Jian said casually. You are ugly, and your whole family is ugly. The ghost child struggled wildly, but was choked by Shen Jian, and he couldn't break free at all. We can only focus on our grandparents for help. When the ghost mother-in-law and the ghost uncle saw this, they stood in front of Shen Jian with a gloomy expression. They blocked Shen Jian's escape route one after another. The terrifying aura belonging to the half-step red-clothed ghost burst out and said coldly, "Human, you too presumptuous to hit my grandson in my house?" After listening, Shen Jian seemed stunned for a moment. Just when they thought Shen Jian had been frightened and was trembling inwardly, Shen Jian suddenly said, "Grandson, you are not the parents of this ugly child. You should have told me earlier. What about their parents? Call them out, it will affect them. The image of the city lord's mansion must be compensated. Uncle Ghost? You break in and tell us what to do, and then make us lose money? Where does the logic come from? Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shiyubuletin Chigwa. Chapter 281. Eccentric. The human being in front of me is really weird. Logically speaking, when a human enters their home, he or she is trembling with fear, or he is pretending to be calm and just wants to leave as soon as possible. As for the person in front of him, not only did he not have the slightest emotion of fear, but he also turned his back on the guests and investigated them. Are they really from the law enforcement team? Even members of the law enforcement team cannot break into other people's homes and beat them randomly. Not to mention just a human being. How can his status be compared to that of a fierce ghost? For a while, they were intimidated by Shen Jian's confident look. After thinking about it, Uncle Ghost said gloomily, "This leader, should you put down my grandson first? I will call my son to come back now. His son is already very close to the red level. No matter how weird this human being is, their family of 6 is not afraid of him." The ghost mother-in-law also said gloomily, "Little leader, do you want to have a quick meal? I just bought a lot of food here, and it tastes so good. Even my little grandson who is somewhat anorexic ate a full bowl," said. Another child sitting at the dinner table also looked at the scarlet basin cooperatively, with traces of bright red blood remaining on it. "Okay." Shen Jian's smile became even brighter. "Hurry up and call your son back. I happen to be hungry too." Finished. Shen Jian left the ghost child behind and sat down at the dinner table. Seeing this, the family of 4 grinned silently, revealing their fangs. The eyes that looked at Shen Jian were already looking at a dead man. Uncle Ghost picked up the phone and dialed. Granny Ghost was about to go to the kitchen to light the fire and wait for the ingredients to be put into the pot. Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, she saw that this human being had been adjusting his posture after sitting down, as if he felt uncomfortable. Then, in full view of everyone, a blood-stained chainsaw was taken out from his body. The chainsaw was also stained with a lot of minced meat. But it still seems a little uncomfortable. Take it again. A mace full of iron nails was also placed on the table. Next came a bloody scalpel. A bloody kitchen knife. One after another, the human being took out successive vicious objects. The dining table was immediately filled. Ghost Granny. She is no longer calm. There's something wrong with this human being. What law enforcement team member would carry such a dangerous item with him? This couldn't be a murderous maniac from somewhere. No. Gotta give it a try. Granny Ghost listened and asked, "Little leader, what do you use these things for?" Shen Jian said casually, "Don't worry, this is the guy I eat with." Ghost Granny? The guy who eats? Is that eating what I understand? She looked at it without leaving any trace, and saw that each ghost weapon was stained with bright red meat, and the ghost resentment on it was extremely strong, as if it had been used just now. This made her tremble. He laughed dryly and said, "Ha ha, little leader, you are really good at joking. With so many weapons, even a guy who eats doesn't need to use so many. You don't understand." At first glance Shen Jian shook his head, picked up the electric saw, turned on the gear, and said mysteriously, "For example, the electric saw is used to cut bones. This scalpel is used to break down some difficult to handle pieces of meat, this kitchen knife is used to chop meat, as for this mace, it is used to beat better quality meatballs." Every time Shen Jian said something, Granny Goo's face turned pale, and she subconsciously said, "Little leader, the meat you are talking about doesn't mean us." As soon as she said this, she regretted it. Because the atmosphere in the living room turned cold at this moment. The smile on the face of the human opposite still remained, but no matter how he looked at it at this time, he looked so cold. He spoke slowly and in a sinister tone, "Why do you have to ask the truth? It's not good for you to know too much about some things. To tell you the truth, in addition to being a member of the law enforcement team, I also have another part-time identity, the delivery person of the Happy Family bucket meal. These things are both weapons and people who eat. But there are rules in our line of work. We are passed down from one lineage and no one can know our identity." Jajaja. When Shen Jian finished speaking, he grinned and looked at the family of four with a hint of a strange smile. "You must have just finished the phone call." The Happy Family bucket said, "With 6 wings in one bucket, we'll naturally keep the whole family together." Ghost Granny. "What the hell, we didn't want to know your identity. You told us on your own initiative. As a fishing law enforcement officer, you are quite good at it?" His performance as a law enforcement team must have been like this. "You." Granny Ghost was trembling all over, looking at the monster-like human in front of her. She was almost frightened out of her soul. "What are you still calling? Do you want to involve your son and daughter-in-law? Hang up now." Looking at Uncle Ghost, who was in a daze, Granny Ghost shouted. "Oh oh." Uncle Ghost subconsciously responded, then reacted, raised a stool, and said loudly, "Old woman, run away with your 2 grandsons, I will fight with him." This moment, the old man showed a look of despair. Fenli rushed towards Shen Jian. The fierceness is revealed. He is a ghost, and this human being is a human being. Even if he is a murderous maniac who likes to kill ghosts, he is sure to last until the old woman leaves with her 2 grandchildren. As for him, he sacrificed his life to serve others. 3 seconds ago, he was thinking this. 3 seconds later, looking at the mace raised by this human being and feeling the power of the mace falling, Uncle Ghost's mind immediately went blank. He fell to the ground with a plop. Ghost Granny. Grass. This human being is indeed a wolf killer. He actually defeated the men in his family so easily. See this. Granny Ghost also pushed her 2 grandsons out and said loudly, "Run quickly, Grandma will stop him." Said. Her rickety body showed a terrible death-like appearance. There was a green face and fangs, and something in the rickety body seemed to be about to break out of the bones. It was a human face, and it was constantly wailing, and the sounds were rolling in. Supernatural power is sweeping the entire place. Shen Jian struck 3 times, 5 divided 2, picked up the mace and struck it. The level of ghosts here is not very high. A family of 4, the ghost uncle is infinitely close to Hong Yi, the ghost mother-in-law has just entered the red clothes, and the 2 ghost children are at the Qing Yi level. For a devil of this level, a mace is enough. Boom. Another crash to the ground. The ghost mother-in-law also followed suit. There were only 2 children left in front of Shen Jian. Ghost kid. There was a burst of screams. The house suddenly fell silent. Shen Jian picked up the phone and put it back on air. "Your family is in my hands. If I don't see you for an hour, I'll break it up. Remember, don't alert the city lord's mansion, otherwise I can't guarantee what I will do." Without giving the other party any chance to refute, Shen Jian hung up the phone. The phone rang again. Shen Jian thought for a while. He pinched the old lady and screamed. "Hang up the phone again." This time, the phone didn't ring again. Shen Jian was very satisfied. "Tear down the family photos from the wall and take them away." Out of the house. Shen Jian felt refreshed. Really? It can be refreshing to come here after doing the exercise you love to do. Shen Jian did not leave. Instead, he pushed open the door of the household next door. Perhaps because the living standard in the urban village is not high, None of the fierce ghosts living here are above the red level. Half-step red clothes are already the best batch. And this family is a fierce ghost that is infinitely close to the red clothed level. The yin qi is about to exceed 5,000. Officially entered the red level. Kaka. The moment you step into the room, an unknown supernatural force began to burst out. A strange sound sounded like bones rubbing together. Shen Jian did not hesitate. Following the sound, I came to the bathroom. You can see a man with all his bones broken and twisted getting up from the bathtub. Dirty water keeps flowing down as he keeps twisting and turning. Next to it was a small hammer for driving nails. Blood stained the top. People can't help but think about it. This evil ghost had its limbs and bones broken, and then put it into a bathtub filled with water, drowning it alive in it. Soon, the bone-crushing ghost finally adjusted his posture and slowly got up from the bathtub. Human, how miserable. The bone-crushing ghost dragged its whole body on the ground and crawled towards Shen Jian in a twisted manner. A tragic sound came out. While it is creepy, it also makes people feel a little pity. Want to help this miserable ghost. Then, the bone-crushing ghost raised his head. The mournful scream stopped instantly. His face was also a little stiff. He saw. The human who broke into his room held a corpse in his right hand. It was the body of an old woman. It has a green face and fangs, and there is a human face faintly crying on its rickety back. That was one of the residents next door to him. It is also a half-step red-clothed level fierce ghost. Although it's a little worse than him, it's still on the same level. And now. But he was pinched in the hand of a human like a dog being dragged to death. He remained motionless and it was obvious at a glance that he had been beaten into temporary dormancy. At this moment, the bone-crushing ghost suddenly remembered that he had indeed heard a lot of noise coming from next door just now, and it seemed that a human had broken in there. Could it be him? Think of this. The bone-crushing ghost was also panicking visibly. Although his terror level is a bit higher than other ghosts, as long as he doesn't officially advance to the red code level, no matter how high it is, it's just that, not much better than a half-step red code level ghost. And this human being can survive from the next room and drag the old lady next door into his house. So what is the situation next door? Needless to say. At this time, Shen Jian also left the old lady with a smile and said with a strange smile, "Did you just say that you were miserable? I am a person who also works part-time as a judge of crimes. If you have any grievances, just tell me. This mace of mine specializes in beating victims, and I am particularly good at subduing them." Shen Jian raised the mace in his right hand. Bone crusher. He specializes in beating victims and is good at subduing them. Damn, it turns out that this is your method of judging crimes. His grandma is a bear. How come I met such a human being? The bone-crushing ghost's expression froze, his whole body was cold, and his violent aura instantly subsided. His broken bones were no longer twisted. The whole ghost stood up, trying hard to look like a normal person, and said with a smile, "No, I have no grievances. I have a happy family and a happy life. I just made a joke with you. It was just a joke. What's the matter?" Victim. The family of 4 next door, 2 half-stepping reds, and 2 green-clothed ones, did not stop this human being. As a ghost who knew current affairs, he simply gave in. Shen Jian didn't believe it and said with dangerous eyes, "Since you have a happy life and a happy family, why did you have your bones broken into pieces, put into a bathtub and drowned? Don't be afraid, tell me bravely and I will make the decision for you." Shen Jian emphasized again. It was just the weird smile on his face that made the bone-crushing ghost couldn't help but feel his heart tremble. He wanted to cry but had no tears. "Brother, can you put away your malice before you say this to me? I'm afraid of you." The bone-crushing ghost waved his hands hurriedly. You misunderstood. This is actually just a hobby of mine. Really, no one wants to harm me. In fact, I did all this myself. Brother, you believe me, you must believe me. Shen Jian listened. He nodded understandingly. I see, but I'm curious, how did you do it? Since you call me brother, you probably won't mind performing in front of me. Bone Crusher Ghost. Ah, this. Are you a devil? He even asked people to perform these. The bone-crushing ghost looked at the old lady on the ground, and then at the mace in Shen Jian's hand. After thinking for a while, he resignedly picked up the small hammer that fell on the ground. Just as he was about to knock it down, Shen Jian shouted, "Wait a minute." This made the bone-crushing ghost feel happy. Sure enough, humans are still kind. How could he be allowed to mutilate himself as a ghost? Use this one. That hammer is too small and can be used for driving thumbtacks. How can it be used to break bones? Shen Jian said. He took out a huge skull-crushing hammer from his body and threw it in front of the bone-crushing ghost. His face was full of malice. Look how good I am to you. I know that you have such elegance in self-mutilation, so I specially prepared it for you, this big hammer. Bone Crusher Ghost. God is so self-harming and elegant. You just want to find a reason to kill me, right? Roar. The bone-crushing ghost finally couldn't bear it any longer. Yin energy surged all over his body, and a violent cold breath burst out, and his body instantly became extremely ferocious. Human, even if I die, I will force you to take my back. He roared. He picked up his twisted and broken arm and smashed it towards Shen Jian. There are a large number of barbs and spikes on the arms, and even just rubbing them will cause bleeding. Shen Jian swung the mace. Knock it on with a stick at no cost. The bone-crushing ghost had tears in his eyes and fell down in humiliation. In the next life, don't let him meet this living king of hell.